crew. We are continuing with day 2 of Misty Gordon and the Mystery of the Ghost Pirates. We left off in the middle of chapter 1. These chapters are really long. And here we go. So Misty was going to go with her dad to somebody's house who had just died because she didn't want to stay home and watch her little brother, basically. Well, let's hit the road, said Mr. Gordon. Take your satchel with you. That's like her book bag, said Mrs. Gordon. You might see something at Madame Zaster's house that you'd like to keep. With her old mail bag slung over her shoulder, Misty climbed onto the company truck with her dad. After a few false starts, the vehicle chugged alive, sending its ice cream music into the air. Dad, said Misty, why don't you disconnect that music? This truck is an antique, he explained, turning onto the street. By playing its music, I am respecting its history. Misty sighed. She knew the real reason the truck still played the music was because her dad couldn't figure out how to disconnect its speaker wires. They'd only been driving a moment, and already the truck was attracting its usual crowd of bicyclers. The Morbid Curiosity posse is up early this morning, noted Mr. Gordon, looking in his side view mirror. Misty looked out the window as they passed foggy Ashcombe Bay, where nearly 400 years ago, the Royal Ashcombe, the English ship for which the town was named, had sunk. Through the breaks in the fog, Misty could see some people walking their dogs along the beach. Looks like the new lighthouse is coming along nicely, said Mr. Gordon, pointing to a construction site on a piece of rock jutting into the sea. But Misty wasn't paying attention. She was busy checking out the pumpkin patch on the other side of the street, where the tops of the orange globes peeked out from the mist. On they drove to the edge of town, where white picket fences were scarce. That means there weren't any. And crumbling houses were plenty. There were lots. This was the creepiest part of Ashcombe. They turned onto Shadow Street, one of the oldest streets in town. The narrow road was lined on both sides with ancient elm trees. Misty sank into her seat as the knobby limbs scraped the roof of the truck like fingernails across a chalkboard. Mr. Gordon checked the side view mirror. The children on bikes had disappeared. Obviously, they hadn't liked the look of things. I haven't been down this street since I was a boy, Mr. Gordon recalled with a shiver. We used to call it the tree tunnel. And what's at the end of this tree tunnel? Asked Misty. Madame Zaster's house, he replied. Just when Misty thought the trees couldn't get any thicker and lower, she and her dad arrived at the end of the street where a little house stood. It reminded Misty of the witch's cottage in the Hansel and Gretel story, except there were definitely no lollipops around this place. It hasn't changed a bit, said Mr. Gordon, stopping the truck, and if I remember correctly, there were lots of cats around here. At that moment, a large tabby sprang onto the windshield. Mr. Gordon jumped, accidentally hitting the horn. It was a clown horn, and the obnoxious wah-wah sent the cat 3 feet into the air and onto the ground. It hissed and skittered into some wild rose bushes. Sorry, said Mr. Gordon sheepishly. They got out of the truck and had a look around. The yard was completely overgrown with grass and vines, except a narrow path made of shells and small stepping stones leading to the front door. Mr. Gordon and Misty had just started to follow the path when they heard something rustle behind them. They each gave a yelp and stood stock still until a voice called out, "Yoo-hoo! Frank Gordon, is that you?" It was Mrs. Neck, the realtor. She looked as relieved to see them as they were to see her. She plowed through the tall weeds and shook Mr. Gordon's hand. Are you really going to be selling Madame Zaster's house? Misty asked Mrs. Neck as they all ambled to the house. Well, I'm going to try to sell it, said Mrs. Neck. But frankly, I don't know who in their right mind would buy this place. It's in terrible shape. She dug around in her purse and pulled out a key. Anyway, Madame Zaster's children didn't want any of the furnishings, so you can pick what you like. This was exactly what Mr. Gordon wanted to hear. He gingerly, that means carefully, took the key from Mrs. Neck's hand and unlocked the door. If the outside of the house looked untamed, it was nothing compared to the way the inside looked. Vines had crept through the windows, the dark green tendrils snaking along the cracked ceiling. Furniture stood covered in dust and cobwebs, and here and there a cat slept, the felines having wandered in through one of many holes in the walls. "Good grief," said Misty. "This place is a mess. How could Madame Zaster have lived here?" "Oh, she hasn't lived here for years," said Mrs. Neck, fanning away a spider. "She became ill, and so she had been living with her children when she died." Another spider came drifting toward Mrs. Neck. "Well, if you need me, I'll be outside, waiting for my associate to arrive." Then she stumbled back out the front door. No sooner had Mrs. Neck left than Mr. Gordon called from the next room. "Look what I found!" Misty stepped inside the dim parlor where her father was hopping up and down next to a round table around which sat 5 chairs. In the middle of the table was a crystal ball. "It's Madame Zaster's seance table," Mr. Gordon sang. He nodded his head and hummed, a sign that he'd found something rare and valuable. "Do you know what this means?" He beamed, waving his arms over the table and chairs like a game show host. "This is a complete set. Talk about fetching a pretty penny." He picked up the dust-laden crystal ball, studied it for a second, then put it back down. "This hunk of glass is probably worthless, though. It might make a good paperweight," he snorted, giving Misty a nudge with his elbow. At that moment, a chandelier above the table started to sway. It creaked back and forth. A hollow sound passed through the house. The lights in the chandelier blazed on, flicked, and then went dead. "What was that?" said Misty, grabbing hold of her dad. "Probably nothing," Mr. Gordon said, shrugging his shoulders. "It's an old house. They're filled with strange noises and electrical problems and— Whoa! I don't believe my eyes!" Mr. Gordon shouted in glee, bounding toward a stained glass floor lamp. "This looks like a Tiffany lamp! Boy, oh boy, oh boy!" While Mr. Gordon drooled over the lamp, Misty hesitantly ventured around the house. She made her way down the narrow hall and into a little room. It was empty, except for a vanity. It was a dainty piece of wooden furniture with an oval mirror and drawers. Misty glided her hand atop its cool surface, then opened one of the drawers. "What's this?" she said, surprised to find that the compartment contained a few things. Among the odds and ends were a slender box and a pair of cat-eye glasses. Remember, she was wearing. Misty took out the box and read its top. The Hypno Clock. Misty removed the box's lid. Inside it was a strange-looking old pocket watch on a golden chain. As she touched it, the timepiece began ticking. She flipped it over and read the curious engraving upon its back. "Listen to the tick and listen to the tock. You're growing ever sleepy to the swinging hypno clock." Madame Zaster must have used this for hypnotizing people, thought Misty, putting the watch back into its box. Then she took the cat-eye glasses from the drawer. Just for fun, she took off her own glasses and slipped on Madame Zaster's. Usually when she traded glasses with kids at school, she could never see clearly through their lenses. But to Missy's amazement, she could see perfectly through these glasses. "How weird," she laughed aloud. Then she jumped, startled to see a tall woman standing in the doorway. The lady was wearing a dark purple dress and old-fashioned shoes. Her black hair hung in thick curls around her face, and she didn't look happy. "I'm sorry," said Misty, guessing this woman was Mrs. Neck's associate. "I probably shouldn't be going through these things. I just wanted to see—" "You will see much," said the woman with a piercing stare. The stranger's voice sounded like it had static, as if it were coming from a radio. "Excuse me?" said Misty. The woman pointed a finger at Misty and chanted, "All will be revealed once you have learned the nature of the Golden Three. But first you must prove your nature to me." "I'm sorry," said Misty. "I don't understand." Quickly, Misty took off the cat-eye glasses and put her own glasses back on. When she looked up, the woman was gone. "What was that all about?" Misty whispered. "Mrs. Neck has one creepy associate. Oh well, whatever." She dropped the cat-eye glasses and hypno-clock into her satchel and then headed off to see what her dad was up to. She found him outside, loading furniture into the truck, while Mrs. Neck stood at the end of the driveway checking her watch and tapping her foot. "Phew," Mr. Gordon gasped, dabbing his reddened face with a handkerchief. He turned to Misty. "I'm all done here. Did you find anything you liked?" "Actually, I did find something," said Misty. "It's Madame Zaster's old vanity. Do you think there's enough room left in the trunk for it?" "I don't see why not," he replied. Miraculously, Mr. Gordon managed to fit the vanity into the overstuffed truck. Finding a place for Misty to sit was another matter. She ended up sitting in the very back of the vehicle, perched atop the seance table. The truck cranked on with its usual ice cream music. A few cats tore out of the bushes as the truck started on its way back down the weedy driveway. Mr. Gordon stopped next to Mrs. Neck. "Thanks for everything," he called out the window. "You're welcome," she said. "I'm sorry my associate never showed up. I know you could have used his help loading the furniture." "No big deal," said Mr. Gordon. "We have a good afternoon." And away the truck chugged. Misty blinked, pushing her glasses up the bridge of her nose. "Did Mrs. Neck just say that her associate never showed up?" she called, trying to make her voice heard over the music. "Yep," said Mr. Gordon. "Then who was that woman in Madame Zaster's house?" "What woman?" said Mr. Gordon. "The woman with the curly black hair," said Misty. "She was wearing a purple dress." Misty saw her father's eyes narrow in the rearview mirror. "Surely you saw her," Misty said, exasperated. "No," he said, shifting gears. "I didn't." Misty was completely baffled. Who had the mysterious woman been? She shuddered as she remembered the woman's chilling voice and her strange message. Misty looked around her. The vanity was just in reach. She began to explore the other drawers. Opening one, she pulled out an old black and white photograph. Her hand began to shake as she looked at the picture, for its image was none other than that of the woman she had met in the house. Misty flipped the picture over. Scribbled in ink was the signature, Madame Zaster. "I think it's going to be quite an autumn," said Mr. Gordon cheerily as they passed the pumpkin patch. "You can say that again," said Misty, dropping the photo into her bag. Done with chapter 1. We will start chapter 2 next time. Oh! Did you do this part? Did you tell me who the characters are? Did you tell me what will happen next? From last time? Were you right about what you thought would happen next? Now Misty is taking those glasses and that watch, and she already has a weird phone, and she's taking the vanity, or like a little table with drawers, from Madame Zaster's house back to her room at her house. What do you think's going to happen after that? Send me a note. What's going to happen?